Chưa lên đèn.
Chưa lên đèn thì nó hỏng rồi.
Chưa lên mà má lên.
Thế là ấn thử nào. Khỏi vậy là luôn.
Alright, bây giờ mới lên này. Okay.
Let's wait a minute.
Okay. How's weather there?
Lên rồi, lên rồi.
Oh, it's good. It's good. I got I thought it was from 4 o'clock in Japan time, so I logged in an hour early. And sorry, thanks for
Yeah,
clarifying.
I know. I'm sorry about that. I forget that in Japan you are like 2 hours later than in Vietnam.
Okay, so it's a good afternoon then over there after lunch.
Yeah, we just have a faculty meeting.
Great. So what I have done is, I think so should I start and will it be all right for I have some activities in
Yes. Sorry.
Yeah, so how do you want to do it? So I have I have some slides that I share the work, and then I will give access to a system. So if some of you wants to have a look at the system, and so around an hour, is that okay?
Yeah. That should be nice. And okay, maybe I will have 1 or 2 minutes to introduce you to the audience, and then we will have like about like 40 minutes for your talk and introduction about the LA platform, and then we have like about 10 minutes for Q&A. This work, right?
Perfect.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. So welcome Professor Ritajit to our webinar today, and please let me to introduce Dr. Ritajit is Associate Professor at Kumamoto University, Japan, and Dr. Ritajit have achieved a lot of award in education technology, and also in the academic society. And Dr. Ritazit is, I think that you are in the lab with there's a Rito lab, right? Rito lab at Kumamoto University. And we look forward to your interesting topic talk today, and we also look forward to cooperation in the future. So please, the ground is for your talk, please.
Thank you again. Thank you, Dr. Alex, for this opportunity. And I have known Dr. Alex through the APSI, and we have met a couple of times in an international conference on computers in education. It's one of the flagship conference of computers and education in the Asia Pacific region. And I take this opportunity to share some of the ongoing work that I am doing related to learning analytics. So the theme of today's talk is reflective practices in an analytics-driven educational ecosystem. I will try to introduce one of the platforms that I am building, and we will try to walk through the platform and use some of those features together. Before I start, I am originally from India. How many of you have been to India yet?
Yeah, I've been in India. He's joining in India for teaching.
Okay, great. So again, later this year, there would be the ICC conference in India this year. So maybe some of you might again get an opportunity to visit India for the academic conference there. So my hometown is in the east, but I did my studies in the west and northwest and also in the south. So I was aware that in India, there is a lot of diversity, and for me, getting an opportunity to meet diverse cultures and diverse thoughts and everything is very, very interesting. And that is something that I really enjoyed so far. And then after my PhD from IIT Bombay, which is on the west, I moved to Kyoto University. So I was spending around 6 years in Kyoto till 2023, and I did my postdoc and also was a senior lecturer there, and then moved to Kumamoto University in 2023 from September. So the next question is, how many of you have visited Japan? Okay, great. So some of you have already visited Japan. So at the end of this talk, I will again show one of the other conferences which is upcoming in Japan in September this year. So if some of you get an opportunity, that would be lovely to have you also in Japan. So my research is in the intersection of these three themes. One is AI in education and educational data science. So I deal with data which is created in the context of teaching and learning while using online learning tools or e-learning tools. It's not necessarily just limited to MOOCs, but it's where teachers or students are using any kind of tools which have the capacity to capture data. And then I also developed and designed those tools. And while I do that, I do it with co-design paradigm. That means that I do not just design it like a developer, but I go to the field and then talk with the teachers and get their needs and the students and involve them in the design process. Okay, so that brings to the third part where a lot of this has an implementation and outreach, because we want to actually go to the field and see what are the needs, develop a e-learning system which then gets used over a period of time. So many of my work is not just a lab study, but it's more of like deploying it at scale and then trying to do a study together with the teachers and students of a particular institution, for instance. Okay. So then in the research aspect, I focus on mostly reflective actions. So reflective actions in the context of learning, I say that it's reflective learning. So there is learning science, which deals with how do we learn. Okay. There is learning analytics, which deals with how do we make sense of the data and how do we utilize that data. And there is also learning design that deals with how do we support learning in the process. Okay, so in this triangle, I say it's in this prism, I try to see that how each of this can be interconnected together. So for instance, for a learner, uh, the learner needs to be self-regulated, or they need to foster self-regulation, regulated learning skills. For instance, they need to understand which resources they are trying to focus on while they are trying to learn a concept or solve a problem. And while doing that, they need means that is one of the self-regulation skills. And if that self-regulation can be supported by a data-driven approach, that means, for instance, a recommendation system would be a data-driven approach for recommending different resources for a learner. Whereas for a teacher, the teacher can also be a reflective practitioner. That means that they can means often in a university or a school context, the teachers offer the same course for multiple times. And in the process, if they can improve their course, but not just arbitrarily, but more from collecting systematic data from their practice and then trying to update their course, the way in which their course is orchestrated or the resources that they are sharing in the course. Okay. So before I move on, I will use a Padlet for this activity. You can directly either open the Padlet by scanning, or will it help if I share it on the chat?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. I will share on the chat for others who are not Zoom. Oh, some of you are there. So first, I also want to, because all of you are there, I also want to know who you are. So you can, if some of you have already used Padlet, you can add over here, and then a box pops up. In your mobile phone, you can directly also click on this add button, and here you can introduce who you are. And I was wondering that what kind of e-learning system are you using, or what kind of data are you collecting while in your teaching learning practice? So if you can share some of that over here.
Yeah, I think most of us are familiar with Moodle. Yeah, we have
Okay.
there. Yeah,
And you're using Moodle in your university context?
the Moodle and some you Canvas or
Okay,
some LMS. Yes.
that's great. So that was my first question. So some of you have already used a learning management system, and you're using it in your context. And the students, are they coming in person for the classes, or it's a remote setting?
Currently, we do a kind of blended setting.
So some of them are there in the classroom, but there are participants also who are remotely logged in. And in the context of Moodle, have some of you used a dashboard?
Yeah, as teacher, yes.
As a teacher, and you use the dashboard for what kind of purpose? Was it
See like summary overview or like see grades. So see some process, yeah, learning process of students.
okay? And to what extent do you think that we are integrating that, or do you means often teachers use the dashboard for the grading purpose at the end of the session, but do we use it for each class?
I mean each class or all the class or what no really.
Each class means if we have say 15 sessions with the students, do we use the dashboard for all the 15 sessions, or do we because I have seen that most of the cases teachers do use dashboard or the data for a final evaluation of a course, whereas to do the reflection for each of the session, that something is becomes very difficult for the teacher sometimes, because there is time constraint, or there are also no ways in which there is an easy question that can be asked that has an answer in the dashboard. Okay, so I think you will also resonate with that thought that it's difficult, right, to continuously use the dashboard. But sometimes some usage are very obvious, like for grading, okay, which is also linked to the practice, because we have to give a grade at the end, right? Yeah. So in the Moodle, apart from the Moodle, do you also create some learning activity for an online environment?
Yeah, of course.
So in your lecture practice, is there more of creating slides, or you also create some kind of interactive session, like using, say, Padlet, for instance?
Yeah, some of students, some of teachers do that. Yes, of course.
Okay, so why I want this is I also want to know some background of what kind of teachers are here in the session today. Are you all from an engineering background, or are you from a science or humanities background? If that would help.
I have background from the medicine,
Okay, medicine, great.
but the other one almost the background in the information technology.
From information technology, great. In Kumamoto University, also we have a very good medical school in Japan, and there is also the Department of Pharmacy in Kumamoto University, and it's more than 100 years old, the university, but it started with small colleges, and then it came together as an university. And there, the School of Pharmacy is one of the oldest one which is there. So I will give you an example from why I asked for that. And then the last question there is, do some of you use sensors to collect data? So that's more of like a futuristic thing. But do you use any sensor or anything which is beyond just log data from?
I think like, no one here have done that.
Okay, but does anybody in ICE means, because many of you are from IT background, have you used any streaming sensor data or IoT devices to stream data?
Yeah, of course.
Yes. So because that is also something which can be very interesting to integrate with the learning context. So that is something that I will give some examples of probably. Yeah. So I also wanted to know, so probably it is mostly about the marks, and you said about the learning process. So that means some interaction data that you collected from the system. What did you decide? Maybe grades, and for now grades, but then so the other thing that was there is, most of us now use the authoring tool to author the learning activity, but do we actually use a learning dashboard? Again, it comes back to the point that, do we use the learners' behaviors? Do we share the learners' behaviors in the class or within a online learning environment, and then take a decision about how the course should progress? Okay, so those are some of the challenging parts, but those are also some of the opportunities that the data which is collected in these online platforms can probably help us with. And so the last point again was something which is, from now on, because many of the devices, or even in a phone, we have so many different kinds of sensors. So if we can utilize that sensor data, to what extent can we make different or new learning experiences? Okay, that's something that is probably we can think about in the future. So again, coming back, there's one part which I focus on the students. So how can they develop the self-directed learning or self-regulated learning skills? But because here today we have more of the teachers and professors, so I want to talk about how in the teaching context the data can be helped. So let me give the direct process answer first. So how can learning analytics support teaching and learning? This is an overview of the process. So I named it DAPPER process, which involves collecting data from the teaching learning context and utilizing that data to analyze and find out known problems, for instance. Okay, so if we have problems that some of the problems are about engagement, so how is our students engaging in a particular course? Okay, based on that, maybe we can then do a intervention design. So if we see that engagement is dropping at a certain point, or if we can predict that the engagement is going to drop based on the interaction patterns at the beginning, we can have a planning of how do we intervene that. And then it gives process, it again goes to the execution and monitoring stage, where because there is the data again which is coming in, we can monitor whether it is improving whatever our indicators were, or whether it is again not improving that much. And that leads to the reflection phase. The reflection is where the teacher, based on that one cycle, can decide in the next cycle how it would go. Okay, so often this reflection is linked to course design, or content design. And but here, any of these changes would also change the way in which the patterns of engagement or the patterns, the way in which it influences the student. Okay, and the student's behavior, if it is captured, it would also change the way in which the teacher is perceiving about the effectiveness of that course. Okay. So let me give a more specific example in the context of e-learning. So we are using a learning management system or a student information system. And have you used any LTI linked tools with Moodle? So are you allowed as an individual teacher to link some external tools in your system?
No.
Okay, so LTI actually helps to, so even if, so often in an institute, the Moodle is the one where the students are registered. But then if there is a tool which you want to link to Moodle, okay, without giving the access of the student information, because there are all, many privacy issues, and often the institution does not want to know the want to share the what do you say, the user information with another party. So LTI is a learning tool interoperability protocol which helps to maintain user management only at an university, but utilize the user role and the system user number to get access to external tools. Okay, so that is one thing which has been used in the Japanese context, and also it helps me to work with the European in the European context where there are more stricter GDPR concerns and things like that. So LTI, you can link tools such as an ebook reader, where the LTI allows the teacher to upload the PDF, and only the teacher can upload the PDF, whereas only the students who are registered in a Moodle course can get access to that PDF while they're reading it. Okay. Or for instance, there are intelligent tutoring systems which can be linked to an LMS by utilizing LTI, and the tutoring system can also compute, for instance, some grades and send it back to the LMS, which is the Moodle system, such that it can be utilized for grading the students' performance. Okay. So those tools are essentially learning behavior sensors, because many of those tools capture the students' interactions, and then it also can be logged in. Okay. And there, with that, what we are doing is, from the learning record store, LRS is the learning record store, we can then utilize a learning analytics engine which can either describe or predict or prescribe any of the, so based on the learner models or the knowledge model or the content model, they can utilize the data which is captured and then visualize it for the students and the teachers. Okay. So this is typically the learning analytics infrastructure which exists. But then we also can get into another level where we are trying to say that, okay, based on a particular level of engagement, can we set some indicators which we can then keep a track of, such that we can know that, okay, what changes in the learning content made what effects on that indicator. So probably thinking about it as these 5 points, that where there is an indicator, where my context can be the course context or the topic that is there within the course, but those are the metadata which is already collected in the learning management system. So linking that metadata to indicators can help us identify problems, and then deciding on a particular online solution. For instance, so let me give an example. Yeah. So for instance, here, while we are automatically logging some learning systems, in the dashboard, we can see that, okay, there is a decline on a particular page for the number of times that the student is spending. So based on that, we can say select those students who are maybe at risk and send them a notification. Okay. So that is the kind of intervention. And if after the notification there is a bump in the engagement, that is something that we can quantify, and that is something that can be utilized. Okay. And in the evidence portal, essentially we can have a whole log of that, such that when there is a new teacher who is coming, they are already aware of the set of problems which are there, or maybe they are aware of the problems which come at the beginning of the semester versus the ones which come later in the semester. Okay. So in that way, we can move from a data plane to an analytics plane, and from an analytics plane to an evidence plane. So not just the raw data, but not just the visualization of the data, but going to the evidence plane. And that is something that we had conceptualized as the learning evidence and analytics framework while utilizing these online tools. So let me again also give you a very concrete example from my previous university in Kyoto. So this was during COVID. So the e-learning portal that I mentioned, it had a huge traffic of about 2,000 weekly users and producing about 80,000 weekly logs during 2020. But then what we tried to do is, so it was an university level activity, and in the university level, there were different departments and who were utilizing this system. And we tried to see that in what domain and in what course and what type of learning content was uploaded. So the learning content here is a PDF plus an audio. Okay. And then based on that, based on the content features, okay, what kind of engagement trends did we get for the students? Okay. So we could see various kind of engagement trend, and I will just give you what was the output of that. So by doing that analysis, we could see that we could give some very concrete recommendations. For instance, that when contents with audio tracks, so some of the teachers, they uploaded their lecture material, but also uploaded their lecture, the recorded voice for the lecture. Okay. But when they are uploading audio tracks and the reading material, okay, if the teacher gives an annotation based activity, okay, that has a much more higher engagement. And here engagement means more percentage of the class actually visits and looks at that material. Okay. And such trends were there in these subjects, humanities, science, and engineering courses. Okay. Whereas, for instance, the third point, if you have a longer audio clip, that means where the teacher has uploaded a whole 30 minutes of audio clip, it is often and in an asynchronous mode that they could use it, and it was seen more in the law context. Okay. So these were some of the actual utilization of those the data which was there, and how did we make the data driven recommendations in that case. And in the process, what we tried to find out was that the power of authoring, that the teacher can create this kind of materials and this experiences is important. And for understanding the context, we need to capture that learning context. Okay? And we need to make this more accessible, because if it is only available for the researchers, but then there is no feedback for the instructors or the students, that becomes the cycle is not completed, because we are just collecting the data and not giving back the data to the end users, who are the teachers and users. Okay. And for that, we then created the new tool, which is LA Reflect, and I will give you an overview of that. So to do that, we will first actually utilize LA Reflect ourselves. So how do we do that? So I have created some access. If you go to mdl.ireflect.la, Could some of you log in? So the login is the username is reflect, and then you can add the date of your birthday. And the password is you are amazing too.
Okay.
Okay. So if some of you could log in, so let's see over here. Okay, I could see one of you could log in. So once you log in, you can go and click on this LA Reflect. It has an eye tracking, so it will ask first for your consent, and then once you first once you go inside over here, in the students view, you can directly click on this GSIS activity. So again, let me show you. Here I am there as switch role to yeah. So you will see this LA Reflect eye tracking. If you log in over here, and then you need to be in this GSIS activity course, and then you can click on the eye tracking. When it opens, you will have a list of activities over here. Yeah, you will have this list. On the top, there would be GSIS activity. If you click on that, you can start the task. So if some of you do not have a laptop, I would encourage you to just look at the neighbor, and then probably you can work on that together.
Your eye, right?
Yeah. So then you go inside over here, and then you can have you have these two thing. Probably in the mobile it would be a little smaller, but once you click on this, it starts, and then there is a task. So you have something that you can read. Let's see what's going on. Okay, at least two of you are there. So Alex, if you can help me, if somebody can, uh, if you can get access, and if you could get to use the system, that is what I want to know.
Yes, we can get access to it, and I think that is better if you need to use a big screen, right, and your
Yes,
computer.
yes,
It will detect your eye where it's going, right,
yeah,
and analyze where you're seeing the chart. Is it
yeah,
nice? Yeah, doing it right now. For sure. We keep finish. I'm using it's okay. So you use some JavaScript framework for this eye tracking, right?
yeah. And then what I want to show is, as a teacher, it's quite easy, we can create these tasks and just enable or disable eye tracking for a particular task. And if I go to show elements inside, here we have a bunch of widgets that can be utilized. So it can either be just a text, or you can just drag and drop a text and write in the text. We can have a video link or a picture link or an audio link or even an iframe. So here you have a chart. So I just provided the link for that particular chart. And on this side, we have also integrated ChatGPT. So I want that if you have so there the teacher can actually give a prompt to the ChatGPT along with the question for the students. Okay, so the teacher can so as you can see, if you go back here, this is what is the question to the student, which says that what did you discover. And here it talks about that you can write one more thing that you found in the chart selector. And if you write over here, this the conversation with the chat GPT can be controlled by the teacher by providing an initial prompt in this authoring tool. Okay, so that is one of the advantages. But then let's see what's happening if some of you are still on there. Okay, two of you have come in. So if I now as a teacher go in here, I can probably see that, okay, one of you have looked over here. You have you have you have just looked at it for a minute. There is Alex. I can see that he has tried to do something, but because it was on a mobile, so the eye tracking was not very accurate and it was just giving a click over there. But then each and every time the learner clicks on one of the elements, because the screen configuration changes, we capture that and then we can again overlay the eye movement data on that. Okay, so this is one. See over here, we can then see that particularly where in that widget are you looking at. Okay, in the same way, so for the learner, just after the activity, they would be taken to this dashboard. And in the dashboard, so for instance, over here, if you go, okay, see, there is much more information. So we can also play that how the eye tracking is happening. So it will try to show these kind of animations of where you are trying to focus on. Okay. And then if I now click on this, what did you discover? So here you have just clicked on what did you discover. So you have not actually typed anything in. But if you have typed something in, that information also get logged. Okay. So let me go back and show you. So these kind of way, we have tried to author different kinds of activities. Okay. So we have used that in an English course activity where the teacher where the teacher tried to use this authoring tool to create a reading based activity, but with the help of using ChatGPT as a support for more comprehension. Okay. And the research that we were trying to do is what kind of prompting and what kind of student instructions were actually helpful over here. And then in the dashboard, we get an overview of all the interaction timelines. The dashboard is built on social comparison as the theoretical framework. So the students can then compare their participation with respect to others' participation. And they can also do a reflective activity, for instance, because the dashboard shows all the answers that were updated. The student teacher can then give an activity of why did you update those answers, and these kind of reflection prompts. Okay. In another context, it was used in a computer science course where a computer science problem was given. So it was more about, it was not a text problem, so it was more of a input output was given as a picture, and then based on that figure, the students were supposed to formulate the problem and then try to solve it programmatically. Okay, but to do that they could have support of ChatGPT, and then we could do, from a research perspective, we could do the research on what was the behaviors of the group of students who could uh, correctly solve that problem, and the group of students who could not solve that problem. Okay, some of the results were very obvious. The correct group had many feed means going back and revision loops, whereas the group which could not solve actually thought that they could just use ChatGPT, so they spend enough amount of time just with the conversation of ChatGPT, but still could not resolve the problem. Okay, but these kind of evidence were gathered because we could actually gather all their interaction logs as well as their prompts. So the follow-up study that we have tried to publish is right now, it's under review, is the type of conversation which the students in the different subject contexts were having with ChatGPT. Now, okay, I will try to. The main objective was also to let you try this platform, but then this platform is also something which is enabling this multimodal learning analytics, and in some sense, I call it as the distributed learning analytics, because maybe while we are collaborating, you would have the class, and or you might have some kind of specific sensors that you want to use, but in this platform, while you can author the activity, you can also use API to connect various sensor specific data to be collected. Or you can also, some of the times the sensors gives a CSV data that can be uploaded in this platform, and it can be available. It is available then for download. So the teachers or the students themselves can use the export function to download that time series data, and the teachers and students can also download their all the interaction logs in a particular activity as an CSV. Okay, and based on that, the teachers can then again, let me go back here once. Yeah, they can also provide a feedback. So sorry, the feedback was not there. So based on the interaction logs, the teacher can export the interaction log, but the teacher can also upload feedback which is customized for each student. Okay, so it is an way in which out of the system, the teachers can also create different kinds of feedbacks and upload it for personalizing feedback. Okay, it's not necessary the functions of the system are limiting the teacher for providing feedback. If you have your own code for generating feedback for a text item, you can extract the text from which is input by the students in this platform, run it offline through your code, generate a feedback, then just upload it in the system. The students can then look at that feedback in the dashboard. Okay, so those kind of flexible architecture is available over here while utilizing this. And that's why I say that it's more of a distributed learning analytics, where the distribution can be regarding data collection, regarding data processing, and then providing feedback. Each of those activities can be distributed. Okay, so this is the other advertisement about the conference in Japan. So this will be the first international conference on learning and evidence and analytics. It's in September. If you want to utilize the system for your for a pilot study and then do a work together, I'm most happy to collaborate with you. The conference would have the full papers of that conference would also be invited for an extension in two journals, and it's there. One is RPTEL and another one is Technology, Knowledge and Learning, and that is one of the opportunities that is there. So moving ahead, what am I trying to do? So I'm trying to wear the hat of a learning analyst and trying to support learning experiences with data. So while doing that, these are the kind of questions that I keep asking. So even if this activity is happening in the physical space, I'm trying to see that what kind of data can be collected in this context. What kind of insights can be interesting? Okay, so I will again pause a moment, and then I would want to say that, okay, if you have any, so this is the context where the students are doing some physical, they have written and drawn something on each of those cards, and then they're doing a group work to share this experience. Okay, so if you have some ideas about what kind of data can be collected in this context.
The behavior, the location of student, maybe when they moving around.
Okay, so location, and in the context of nursing education, a lot of work has been done for group work and with location sensors, for instance. Yeah, great. Anything else?
Like maybe voice sensors to detect some specific words when they discussing about the lecture.
Okay, great. So things like having a microphone and then trying to detect who is speaking for how long, and trying to see that what kind, or even trying to analyze the semantics or the of the conversation which is happening, that is possible. Yes, so there is some work for that. In the Japanese context, we tried to do that while kids in the schools were learning maths, and they were doing a maths problem together, and we tried to see that what kind of group interactions, as you mentioned, that what kind of words were said. Is it about problem? Is it about something about their the way in which they are trying to think about the problem? But even before going to that semantic level, trying to see that what kind of participation in a group work is happening when there are these things there. Okay, and those are the kind of insights that can be interesting, right? So if the teacher knows that out of the 10 groups that are being are collaborating, what kind of focus is happening in which group, if that summary information is provided to the teacher, they can decide which group to intervene. Okay, now based on that, I want to also go to this level where can we utilize that data to actually create the next phase of the group work. Okay, so in our context, what we try to do is, for instance, again going back to this system, you can create a reflection activity within this dashboard. So for instance, if you're still playing around with the system, you can see that there are these options of where you can try to choose a chart with ChatGPT, but you can also try to choose it by yourself by looking at the chart selection map. Okay, but then that was the task. But after the task in the dashboard, so if you go in the dashboard, and over here you will have at the bottom, you will have a feedback form, and in that form the teacher's question or these authored questions will come. So there, this is a time where that we can give another reflection prompt about which one of those resources were more useful for the task. Okay, and there the second question is, did you, so the same chart was given in two tasks. The first task where there was only the chart introduced, and in the second task where the chart was introduced and you had to write about your research in that context, right? So was there any difference in the behavior while you are looking at the same chart with an objective and without an objective, for instance? Okay, so those kind of things can be given as a prompt. And here the prompt is for as a reflection prompt for the learners, to then they can actually look at the data that they have collected and try to see what is their learning strategy. Okay, so it's moving towards a learning strategy and finding or discovering your own learning strategy with the data, which is supported right now with the teacher prompt. But then eventually we can also try to see that how LLMs can create those prompts for the teacher for the student to reflect on. Okay, so I think that's something, there's a lot of potential in this. And I want to end with some thought pointers. So one of the thing is that any of this designing or creating is no longer now an individual activity. I cannot say that, oh, I am a system designer and I just design a system that I can think of. Okay, there needs to be a collaboration for doing that. And in the same way, even with the generative AI framework, as you can see that there is a need of data. And if the context is there, of course there is a shift, or there is a thrust towards making a more generic AI. But then in the educational context, if we can highlight what are the context specific needs, or what are the data needs in this context of education, then we can definitely create a much more robust AI in this framework. Okay, so I'm also trying to think about what are the data needs that are required specifically in the context of education, that we can try to create newer forms of AI which will help the educational domain specifically. Okay, and one of the thing is to aim to integrate learning analytics. So analytics are the data which is collected not only for the research purpose, but to see that how activities can be designed which utilizes this data trace for the next round. Okay, and then the other thing is that requires an institute-wide promotion. So if there are universities and institutes that can support such kind of practices, not just at a university level, but trying to look at practices at a national level, or practices that can be that can go transnational, and then those are the ways in which we can try to build a bigger community. Yeah. So I would keep it over here. The idea is to introduce, and then you can take it up from there for further explorations, I would say.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ritazit, and this is very insightful research and insightful demonstration for your LA reflection system, right? And while we waiting for some questions, so I have two questions.
Yeah.
The question I should have is, what do you think about the teacher adoption for technology applied in classroom? With your experience in both in India and in Japan, what is the difference? Because here in Vietnam, we kind of mix, between India and Japan. The situation is a bit similar here, I would say. So that's the first question. What do you think about teacher adoption for technology applied in the classroom?
Yeah. So I think that is the core question, right? So even if we create technologies, if it is not adopted, then it's of not it's still on the shelf kinds, right? So one of the things that we are trying to also look into different models of adoption. So one of the models is in the Indian context. Jaikrishnan Varyam, JK as we know him, he has created an A2I2 model where the teachers during the teacher training also needs to use the same tool that they are requested to use in their classroom. Okay, so if there is a low threshold for adopting a tool, then they would try to say that, okay, I can probably use that tool in my classroom. Okay, and in another thing which is very pertinent in some of the context, for instance in India, is if it is too high resource technology, then it becomes again very limited. Okay, so for instance, if it requires a high bandwidth of internet, or for instance if it requires so there are different technology bottlenecks at times. Okay. Right now, those technology bottlenecks are not the primary ones, but the way in which the technology is adopted by the students is something which is limiting the teachers. For instance, the teachers still has the laptop and tries to open it, but then all the students are just using the mobile phones. Okay, so for online system, the system interface should be more towards a mobile compatible one, because the students are often not opening up a laptop, but they're using some tabs or their mobile to do an activity. So in that case, apart from teacher training and teacher introduction, it's important to also look at the students or the other end users, which would motivate the teachers to adopt the technology. I would also say that in the Japanese context also it is challenging. So there is, I think, one, I have one. Yeah. So I have, we had written a whole paper about this co-design approach, and how it's done in the Japanese context. A quick overview of that is basically we are trying to first introduce it in an university context where there is much more control, and then try to resolve the things at a higher education level, and then introduce it to a school teacher context, where it is more open. Okay, in some sense. So there is also the need of policy to come in, where that's what I mentioned, that the policymakers at a different levels, the university, the national level, if there is a thrust from there, there is more adoption also. So right now in India, there is this trust about, or in many countries, there is this trust about generative AI. So in generative AI, how to do that, or how to design an activity which is linked to generative AI policies which are mandated by the government, those kind of things, if it is aligned, then there would be more adoption. Yeah.
Thank you very much. And related to this question, I have to ask a very quick question that you mentioned before that in 2020 you have experiment that involved like nearly 2,000 students, right?
Yeah.
So like is it look like a really difficult thing to do? I mean, this is experiment, and how can you get that much number of students involved in that experiment? You have
Oh,
a
but that is because it's for the whole. So we had the university access, because the whole of the university was using the system, and that's why we could get data from all of those university students, and that was the context that was there.
nice, that's nice because uh in uh in my experience, it's a bit difficult, you know, you get the whole school to use your system and make some use of it.
Yes. So there again, the policy would come into place, and if the university adopts that, okay, this one tool is useful in the context of the whole university, then we need to support how the tool can be adopted by each of the teachers, and in our context, because they could just upload their PDF files, that was something that actually helped it. So here we had more than 6,300 students across 243 courses, and so more than 6,000 students were actually using that platform.
A lot of data, right?
Yeah.
So we received one question about uh, almost identical to the adoption question, but it's something like how technology in different devices. Like, yeah, it's just see that in the mobile devices and laptop, how you make, you know, unique activities analyze on both devices. What different?
So currently, means if I get the question correct, is there a way in which we are designing activities different in for tablet versus that for laptops? Is
Yeah,
that? Yeah.
like different or this is same similar?
So if we are using some of the web frameworks that are available now, the interface can be made more flexible. Means once you go from a desktop layout to a mobile layout. However, there is this advantage of there are different sensors which are available in the mobile. So if somebody wants to utilize that, so for instance, I can give you an example. For a data science class, for instance, okay, instead of giving a package data for the students, the data collection phase can also be something that is included, and the students can utilize the mobile sensors for collecting the data, and that data can be used for doing the further classes for doing, say, some analysis of the data. Okay, so in that way we can get different types of data from each students, utilize that for the actual data science program. And to do that in the in these kind of in the platform over here, what we can do is we can just use so there is this parser which we can include, and with the parser the students can upload any of the CSV file, any of the time series CSV file, and they can utilize that file's data to then do further processing. So we can try to create a lesson design or a task design which utilizes that data.
Có thay nhìn học sinh. Vâng. Thì nhiều là anh hỏi. There's a question.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you for very interesting presentation. It's related to very important issue now, especially when now students use a lot of mobile device or when they do learning activity. So my question is that how we can what are the ways that you model the learning data from students? For example, yeah, do you understand my question? What the
So-
way you model learning data you got from a student? For example, because for you can receive a lot of data from a student, as you mentioned. For example, from the different sensors, or when students do learning activity in the MMS, for example. So, what are the way you when you collect the data, and what are the way you model the learning data from a student?
Okay, so if I understand, I'm trying to say that what are the learner models that we are creating, right? The way in which we are utilizing the learner models. So one of some of the examples that I can provide. Let me just give you an example, quick example of. Oh, sorry, this is not shared there. So what we are doing is we are trying to so for instance, we are doing something over here, which is related to utilizing the, so you can see that if we are using the eye tracking in this case, right? So can we utilize the eye tracking to then group students? Okay. So for grouping students, we can utilize the eye tracking data that we are collecting, and then utilize either so we have developed genetic algorithm based architecture where we can see heterogeneous students going together or homogeneous students grouping together. So the learner model then has this in the information about the students click and the students attention based on the eye tracking, and all of these things together can be utilized to group students together. The other thing is with respect to all these examples that we are showing over here. Okay, the sequence, the process mining of the students. Okay, that process mining itself can be used for providing a feedback to the teacher regarding what did a correct student versus incorrect student do. Okay, so some of those things are also part which are right now we are trying to include that in the dashboard, such that the teacher gets the information from the student's model. So over here, the student model has the interactions of each, where did they click on a particular task. So those are some of the examples. Again, for instance, we can also do the text-based modeling. So the based on the text that the students has created in a particular, say, a writing course, we can try to do the standard modeling of the correctness of that text. But now with LLM, we can probably utilize that text artifact also to provide more further feedback for the students. So those are some of the examples and ideas that we are having.
Thank you very much. There's a question of our professors here that can you show the result of comparing using the technology enhanced system to compare to another classes? Have done some similar research, all right?
Okay, so some of those are right now ongoing. So right at the beginning, right now, that also links to the teacher adoption part. So at the beginning, if we say that we need a control group and an experimental group, okay, that is more hard for the teacher to arrange. So right now, we are having more of the studies are one group studies, but we are trying to see different behavior metrics, and then trying to see what kind of differences evolve in that metrics, because we have this fine-grained data with us. However, going forward, we are now also trying to do certain control experiment kind of a study. We are trying where we can see the efficacy of that. There is one which we did that was with respect to say so there are these videos, and then somebody can learn a concept from video, or somebody can learn a concept from text and audio. So the modality between video and audio and text, and this was a study done in India, where one of the groups which was looking at the video utilized this platform to collect the data, and they were trying to see the efficacy of those modalities on a particular the topic performance. So we have one of those studies, but not specifically about the utilization of multimodal data, how it influences. We are yet to do some control study for that. And that's also another thing that we can probably collaborate on if there
Yeah.
is a, yeah.
Of course. Thank you very much. And we already like almost 10 minutes over time, but like
Okay.
time for research and ideas and related things about learning analytics. And thank you a lot. And we will think more about the collaboration. Yes. And as you say that of course, there's some school setting that may not work in Japan, but it may work in Vietnam or yeah, something like that. And of course, we can try something out like in the another discussion.
Sure. And I think the easier part, if somebody in your university wants to utilize this, because it's already, you are saying that you already have Moodle, so this can be directly linked to Moodle, and I do not even need to have the student information, because the students can directly access this as a tool and utilize this. So the teacher can create maybe one small activity in this platform, and and then collect the data and utilize that for any of the research purpose.
I see. Well, I think that I may have like 100 students for you to have this test
Okay,
next week, I think. We'll try it
great,
next on 100 first, maybe.
great.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much, and
Great.
thanks a lot for some insights for us today. And my boss is going out for a meeting, but we look forward to sometime I invite you to actually come here visit us the near future.
Great, that would be great. I haven't visited Vietnam yet. I would love to visit, and of course, being in person is much more warmer, and we can discuss much further things from there.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very
Great.
much.
Have a good afternoon, everybody, and thanks very much for joining. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Okay, bye.
Okay. Đủ ngắt. Chụp từ nãy